Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fugis with MoldMaking Technology for a quick MMT chat. My guest today is Brian Dippel, the Operations Manager for Excel Tool and Mold in Fairview, Pennsylvania. Now, Brian works with the engineering, the quality, program management, and molding departments. But to start, I have to note that Excel was MoldMaking Technology's 2019 Lead Time Leader winner, mostly due to Brian pushing the submission along, which is quite the feat. You can check out the feature online at MoldMakingTechnology.com. Plus, there was a video feature as well as footage from the live awards ceremony back in 2019. So check it out at MoldMakingTechnology.com. Brian is also one of MMT's newer editorial advisory board members who I lean on. So hello, Brian.
Hi, Christina. How you been?
Good. So I have to start off mentioning our common ground, which is the Plastic Group in Erie, Pennsylvania. So
Yep.
you worked back there when owner Joe Prishak, founded MoldMaking Technology magazine. And I think you told me recently, you didn't know this, but you actually gave me my very first mold shop tour way back then in the 90s, and here we are 20 plus years later, and we're still talking mold making. I love it.
I remember that.
Do you remember that? That's a good
yeah.
memory. It seems like yesterday sometimes, and other times it seems so long ago. So why don't you, to get started, why don't you give us a snapshot of who Excel Tool and Mold is, and basically your journey. Like, how did you wind up there, especially after your years at Plastic?
Okay. I'll start out at, I went to a trade school to learn tool and die, and started in the trade building molds for different companies, and got more into the mold repair end of it and the molding side of it just through happenstance, and ended up at Plastic. They had one of their molding divisions was Spectrum Molding, and I worked in their tool room there, started out fixing molds, and it wasn't long before they asked me to be the department manager there. And we were a support department to a molding facility that had 65 plus molding machines, excuse me, at the time, plus some assembly and some decorating equipment. So it was high volume consumer product type work. So high cavitation, just put out parts as fast as you can and keep the molds in the best order that you can to keep production up. And one of the big things that we worked on there was cycle times and cavitation. And cavitation was my side of it. So keeping cavities up. We were, on average, we would be about 98% cavitation. We'd run anywhere between 2,700 and 3,200 cavities per day.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of fun there.
Yeah. So how did you so take us through that.
So working with them for quite a while at Spectrum, and did a little project management with them as well. When we had new business that was awarded to us, like let's say call it takeover business, where there wasn't really building molds or building equipment, we were just taking over the equipment. I would go to the sites and evaluate that stuff and integrate it into Spectrum. So got my feet wet with project management that way, understanding the internal workings of the buildings and everything that's needed, the equipment and all that, and handled some new builds for Spectrum that were built by other tool shops around the world. Big customers that Plastic has. One was, I'm not sure if I can mention their name, Unilever. Yeah, okay. Big customers that they have, and global rollout programs. And from there, I moved directly into project management, corporate project management for Plastic, and ran a number of programs for them. Probably the biggest one is a deodorant package that I see on the grocery store shelves now, which is a lot of fun. All the things that you do to make that come to life, from a sketch or a rendering to, production volumes of 300 plus million per year. It's really a fun ride, yeah. And from there, I moved into general management of Triangle Tool for Plastic. there was an opening, and I was asked to fill the position. So I ran Triangle for a few years there, and I don't know, felt like I needed a change, and met Ron, and he convinced me to come work for him in operations because they had a fledgling molding department, and starting to build on that a little bit. We're actually running some production now. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
That's a wealth of experience to get you where you are
years,
today.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
you
yeah,
attended.
I've been here 3 years. Yeah, sorry,
Oh, you've been at Excel 3 years.
3 years now. Yeah,
Oh, wow. Wow. So
little over.
that's pretty amazing. So you attended trade school to learn tool and die, but correct me
Hmm.
if I'm wrong, but you also earned a degree in business administration and management, correct?
Hmm.
So
I went
can
to
you talk?
Edinburgh University. Yeah.
That's right. So can you talk a little bit about, I mean, that's a wonderful background to have, right? Or expertise to have, skill to have. So can you talk a little bit about that combo, the value of that combo during your career, having the trade side and the business side?
It has helped considerably, actually. I think it's what helps you get where you are is your work ethic. In my opinion, anyways, it's your work ethic, and you're willing to put in those long hours. And of course, you have to have the wherewithal to understand the business and understand what's going on around you in terms of tooling and in terms of molding. But I think it's the drive in the individual that gets them to where they are. Um, Obviously, the education and the experience, you get that along the way, but it's that drive that finally gets you there, in my
I
opinion.
would agree with that. And
Yeah.
that's that whole soft skill end of things, right? All those
Hmm.
things that are so important that a lot of times are not taught, right?
Right.
Are not taught.
You either have it or you don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't. So I would imagine your experience with tool making, mold making, and molding has been another bonus, especially since I've noticed this the past, well, recent past and long past. There's a trend over the years of mold builders going beyond sampling, right? And that includes Excel. I can remember
Oh
when you
yeah.
won the award, I stood in your sampling room, right? And we did
Hmm.
shot one of the interviews, but I also stood in that empty space that was for your planned expansion area. So well, before we get into
Yep.
that, where that is today, can you talk about the blend of your mold building and your molding experience, how that has benefited your role at Excel and Excel itself, because they've expanded into injection molding. And I know you supported that effort to add more medical customers to capitalize. And I think it's the company's ISO 13485 certified class 8 clean room, right? So that was part of what you
Correct.
did, was to help build that. So talk about that
Mhm.
blend of molding and mold building and how you helped Excel grow.
Mold building gives you a pretty well-rounded knowledge of mold design, but I think something that gives you even a better knowledge is when you, or I should say, a more well-rounded knowledge of molds is when you start running them.
Hmm.
And when you run them for a place like Plastech, or you're exposed to them running and keeping them in good condition, not only are you exposed to the designs of the mold that are built by Plastech or that you have built in the past, but you're running molds that other people have built from all over the world, literally all over the world. So you see many different designs and many different takes on how to do a core pull or how to do impress closing
Hmm.
or just different ways of ejecting parts. You really get a lot, especially when you're running 65 molding machines, you see a lot of different mold
Oh, I
designs.
am
You have to
sure.
work with all of them. Yeah.
And I'm sure
And
you get into maintenance too, right? The importance of mold maintenance.
absolutely, yeah. That's why you visited the first time was
Yep,
we did an article on mold maintenance way back
that's
then.
right. Yep.
And when you're talking 300 plus million pieces a year, mold maintenance is very important. They don't come out of the press very often. So you learn an awful lot about how to handle or how to take care of a mold while it's still in the press, especially some of these bigger stack tools. We ran an awful lot of stack tools at Plastech, and trying to do everything you possibly can in the press is the most important contribution to efficiencies when you're talking 300 plus million a year.
I
So
believe it.
how to design a tool to be able to take it apart in the press is important. You learn a lot. When you're a mold builder and a molder, you're integrated with that. You bring a lot to the table when it comes to mold designs.
So where is that expansion today, that physical expansion at Excel?
We've actually used the expansion a few different times. We had a 300-ton Husky press rigged in for a mold that we actually qualified here at Excel, and then packed the whole thing up and shipped it to our customer. We've done that once already, and we've just put in a new 440, well, not new to us, 440 Arbor 2-shot press. Okay. And we sampled a medical device mold in there that we shipped down to Puerto Rico, and that mold right now is being set up for production, actually. Or that, I'm sorry, that machine is being set up for production right now.
Within Excel?
Within Excel, yes.
It's happening. All right, let's get into some more of the interesting questions. So what has been the most interesting mold project that you've worked on?
I would have to say it's back when I was a project manager and managing the, it was actually the name of the project was Project Morpheus.
Oh, I like that.
For a deodorant package, yeah.
Okay.
Because it was so many different molds and assembly equipment and all the other stuff that goes with it. That was very technically challenging for me. Yeah.
It tested you.
Oh yeah, a lot of hours. I'm telling you, a lot of hours.
I'm sure. Yeah. What has been the most rewarding part of your career?
I like seeing the products on the shelf at the grocery store. Whether
most people say that.
Yeah. Do they really?
Yeah.
Even if it's just you made a change, you change the label a little bit, or you change the texture or the shape of a cap for a different version, or the entire pack, and you were instrumental in getting that package on the shelf. That's really cool. Yeah.
I mean, there's not that many jobs, I think, where, you actually, that everybody can relate to it if they actually understood manufacturing and mold making. All these products that you had a hand in that, like the way you can actually go into a store and touch something and say, yep, I did that. I did part of that. I think that's phenomenal. I mean, I get excited when a new issue comes out and I'm thinking, oh, that's mine. I did that. But I can't imagine being something that I use every day, like a deodorant stick. Everybody uses those, so everybody can relate to that. I just think it's just awesome. All right, so go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Oh, just on the particular stick that we put together for this customer, the feature when you rotate the stick, you rotate it to propel the product. There was a certain torque value that they had to achieve through 360 degrees of rotation. And all the internal mechanisms for that particular part of the pack, we named it Steve. So whenever we talked, I know it's pretty funny. When we ever talked about the process of what we needed to do to make Steve function differently with, it needs to ramp torque faster or drop torque sooner. We didn't know what to call it, so we just call it Steve.
I love that naming projects. That's funny. Steve Johnson, do you know Steve Johnson from Mold Tracks? When I went to his mold maintenance facility, he has all his molds that he uses during his workshops, and every single one of them has a name, and there's always meaning behind the names.
Yeah.
I think that's a fun aspect of the job.
Project names are fun too, like Morpheus, but there's so many out there that you just, where did they come up with that?
Well, it also makes the people that were involved in that project, you won't forget if you give it a creative name versus Project 1, 2, 3, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So, what has been the most challenging aspect of your career so far? And in terms of that challenge, do you have any, since you've lived through it, do you have any advice on those that are listening or watching on how to tackle or how to navigate that same challenge in their careers?
We actually talked about it just a minute ago, but the challenge is the amount of hours that you work. For me, especially now, I'm older. When we met, I think it was in my early 30s, and I'm not there anymore. I'm just an old man now. It is hard. it is hard to put those hours in now. Yeah. And still be able to maintain some level of life at home. Yeah.
Yep.
You have to be careful of that.
Work-life
You really
balance.
need to be careful of that. You got to balance it. I
Yeah.
could have done a much better job, I think. But,
Yeah. I often say that too. And that's not just people. People often say that of owners of shops or owners of companies, but it's even the employees. A dedicated, passionate employee ends up putting in more than you're right, than they probably should in terms of the other aspects of your life. Work-life balance is really hard,
yeah,
depending on who you are, right? Really hard.
absolutely.
So I know the customer and continual improvement are two important areas for Excel to you. Can you talk
Mhm.
about why and your strategies for making each of those a focus in your everyday, your daily routine?
So it's actually funny, but when I was younger, I was an introvert, quiet person. Never thought I would do anything with ever talking to a customer for a company, but it worked out that that's where I ended up. So you have to be pretty good at it. So I always try to polish my skills when I'm talking to, I would say polish my skills, but I don't want it to be a customer vendor relationship. I want it to be more of a personal relationship. You know, I want to get to know not only the business end of what we're doing, but the person that I'm working with. I want to get to know them as well. That's my personal take on it. And you actually learn an awful lot about some very interesting people. It's really cool. I know a lot of people from where I came from, you know, working with companies around the world. I know a number of people around the world, still friends with them, email them or maybe shoot them something on LinkedIn. And I know a little bit about all their lives. It's really cool. I don't just know that we worked on this one thing, but I know that the one guy likes to hunt, you know, from Germany,
Yep.
or
Yep.
or the one guy from Austria likes cars, you know, and he has a couple of different cars. But I like to take it to that next step to just, you know, so they remember you too, you know. And
Exactly.
go ahead.
I was going to say the key, what you said, is relationship. Because what I've
Mhm.
learned over all these years, especially within this mold manufacturing marketplace, that's so important. And it's not hard to dig a little deeper and find out about somebody's wife, their kids, their family, their interests, and they just completely open up. And then you're building that trust too.
Mhm.
But it seems to happen organically within this industry, which is why I have fallen in love with that aspect of it. It really is a community. So I can
I
attest to what you're
agree.
saying there. How about continual improvement? How do you work on that every day within Excel?
Um, well, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
You mean for me personally or the
I,
company in
I,
general?
it could be both. I mean, you could talk about it just in terms, it sounds like it's a philosophy of Excel. So how does the company itself ensure that it's constantly, helping the workforce, right? Work toward
Mhm.
continual improvement. I mean, that's a phrase a lot of people say. So how does Excel live up to that?
Well, you know, we treat people here as their individuals and we listen to them so that if they have something to contribute to a program or to a design or to a process, you have to, I believe you call it employee centered or something like with the ideas coming from the people and we end up using those ideas, we want to give those people recognition as well, so it supports them in their efforts to contribute again on a different project later. I think I answered your question.
Yep, that's that continual growth. Yeah. So you foster that again by the relationships you have with your people, right? That make you
And well,
feel
it's not only
comfortable
the
enough.
people internally, but it's your customers as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So I can't not chat with you about this while I have you on the line, um, since it's pretty recent. And it's also part of a trend that I'm seeing more and more within the mold manufacturing marketplace is the recent acquisition of Excel
Mhm.
by Cybridge Technologies in Southfield, Michigan. So can you tell me who Cybridge is, a rough idea of when the acquisition took place, and then talk a little bit about how things are going today with Excel and the team since the acquisition.
So the acquisition took place back in October, the end of October, and I keep getting sorry, back in the end of October. And the company itself, Cybridge, I think they're about 2.5 years old, and
Okay.
the main parent company called Crestview decided to get into the tooling industry and said, look, we're going to build a tooling conglomerate, and we're going to set aside $200 million to do that. And Cybridge was formed, and the folks that they hired to run Cybridge are looking, or have been looking, for tool shops to bring under the umbrella of Cybridge. And they have a mobility division, and Excel is their first venture into medical. And I believe they're probably going to look into consumer products as well.
Okay.
It's been a pretty good acquisition, I believe, so far. Not a whole lot has changed here. We're just sort of integrating, like, let's say, their policies and procedures for running the company, but not a lot has changed just yet. We're still called Excel, and we still use the same systems. We haven't changed computer systems or anything of that nature yet, but I'm sure those changes are coming. It's only been a few months, so
Has there been any like immediate investment in technology since the acquisition?
We are adding another Yazda, I believe.
Oh, nice.
Another robot and another CMM. So yes, there has been some influx into growing the business.
I mean, that's the real positive thing. I mean, people can take all this merger and acquisition activity in different ways. And I've recently really looked at it as this is a way to just push our industry forward. That alone, if it's the right company and they're investing for the right reasons, and they invest in people and technology, it can just take the industry off to a whole new level that maybe wouldn't have happened without it. Right? You just never know, or at least it accelerates it. So that's the positive of all that activity. I think it's nothing probably good things in the future with these type of activities, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's we're talking about using each other's resources. They have different mold flow packages, and those types of things, so we can draw on each other's strong points.
I love it. All right. So last but not least, we have to chat about, the fun side of Brian and your fun extracurricular activity. And when I first heard this, I don't know why. It's not like I can look at a person and say what their activity should be generally, but yours is scuba diving. So I love that. I don't think I've yet met anybody else that has told me that. You hear the fishing and the hunting and the hiking and the different sports, but not scuba. So when did you get into scuba? Why? What hooked you?
Well, when we were young, we were water babies, pools and all that stuff. So I've always been in water, and always wanted to do the scuba thing. And just, I don't know what got me to, just after I got married, I did it. I got trained. I don't know what prompted me to do it, but it worked. Yeah. And
like, did you like snorkeling? And then you're like, I want to go deeper, or?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I loved going snorkeling. And wanted to go deeper, wanted to see shipwrecks. So I probably have, I would say, I'd have to look at my book, because to be honest with you, I haven't dove in probably the last year and a half. I used to be much, much more active. I would dive twice a week.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. I belong to the sheriff's, what was it called? Erie Skin Divers. They were part of the sheriff's scuba team. Yeah. So I would dive twice a week on Wednesdays and Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. So I do night dives and morning dives.
Oh, cool. How long is a dive, a typical dive?
Well, around here where we go, it's relatively shallow, so you can actually dive for quite a while. But I would say usually 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Yeah, because we're only going maybe 20, 30 feet deep in the bay around here, or in some of the other areas, the inland lakes in the Erie area.
I still think
some quarries. I've been in the ocean too, and night dives, certified ice diver. I've dove through probably about 15 ice dives now. Yeah.
What was the coolest thing you've seen in a dive?
Oh wow. I dove on a wreck out in Lake Erie that went down in 1856. They call it the Stone Wreck, and it was coming from the Niagara Gorge, and it was going to Cleveland, and it had a load of stone on it. Just their like square blocks for building like a church or something.
Right.
It got caught in a storm and never made it. So
Wow.
the thing about in fresh water, the wood doesn't rot. So it looks just like the day it went down.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really, really cool.
Were you able to take photos?
I didn't have a camera at the time, no, but I have actually thought about doing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of wrecks in Lake Erie, over 5,000 shipwrecks in Lake Erie.
Like I remember you saying that before. I would never think that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
A lot of them have been over the years. I mean, from going way back to the 1700s.
Right.
If something goes down, like if you've seen tall ships, the masts, they're 120 feet. If that boat went down in Lake Erie, you'd still see it, because the average depth of Lake Erie is only like 70, 75 feet. Okay. So you would still see the masts if one of those ships went down. There's a couple spots that are deeper, but yeah, really cool. Really,
That's
really
very cool. Very cool hobby. So on that note, I want to thank you for your time. And I want to remind everybody out there watching, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay safe and healthy. And most importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.